Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you've spent any time at all working as an engineer, you absolutely know the pain of remote environments. You get access to a virtual machine for development, and sure, on paper it looks totally fine. The code is there, the dependencies are there, the network access is ready to go. But then, reality hits. You're suddenly expected to troubleshoot and code through clunky remote desktop protocols, or worse, you're staring at a stark black terminal screen trying to edit files using standard command line tools. It just feels disconnected, doesn't it? Your favorite shortcuts feel wrong, the workflow is jagged. Well, today, we're going to look at how to completely eliminate that friction using the VS Code Remote SSH extension.
Just think about the stark contrast in cognitive load between the two approaches. The old way means juggling a dozen raw SSH terminal tabs. One tab is tailing a log, another is running a top command, and a third is where you're actually trying to write code in a terminal editor. It's totally chaotic. But then compare that to a unified, dark-themed VS Code workspace. Your code, your logs, your integrated terminal, and your debuggers are all centralized in one single window. You are technically inside the remote environment, but you get to keep that rich, local editor experience you're completely used to. To really drive home why this matters so much, I love this brilliant quote from engineer Charity Majors. When you're bouncing between detached terminals and disjointed dashboards during an incident, you aren't really investigating root causes, are you? You're just skimming through data, desperately looking for visual spikes that happened around the time of your incident. As she so perfectly puts it, that's not debugging, that's pattern matching. That's eyeball racing. Real debugging is methodical. You ask a question, examine the answer, and ask another question. And you simply cannot do that effectively when your tools are fighting you and your context is scattered across 6 different terminal windows.
Okay, Section 1, how remote SSH works. Let's break down the 30-second concept.
This is a massive paradigm shift. With this setup, your integrated development environment, your IDE, is actually split right in half. When you use remote SSH, it installs a super lightweight component called the VS Code server directly onto your remote Linux, Windows, or macOS host. And this server, it does all the heavy lifting. It executes your extensions, manages the remote file system, and runs the terminal processes. Meanwhile, your local machine is just handling the fast, responsive user interface. You aren't transmitting bulky graphical pixels over the network, like some laggy VNC connection. You're only transmitting the absolute necessary data.
So these two hubs communicate through a highly secure, authenticated SSH tunnel. All the back and forth between the remote server and your VS Code client happens right inside this encrypted tunnel. And here's the best part. Because your UI remains completely local, your keystrokes are basically instantaneous, zero input lag. But the moment you hit save or execute a command, that execution happens 100% remotely on the target machine. You're getting the raw compute power and network access of your remote server, but with the speed and comfort of your local laptop. It's the best of both worlds.
Moving on to Section 2, the step-by-step setup guide.
Getting this running is incredibly fast. There are really just 3 straightforward steps here. First, you set up your SSH configuration file, and we highly recommend using key-based authentication rather than typing out passwords, just because it's far more secure and way more convenient. Second, you simply grab the official Microsoft Remote SSH extension straight from the VS Code Marketplace. And third, you initiate the connection right from the command palette by pressing F1 and typing remote-ssh connect to host. It honestly is that simple.
Let's look a little closer at that first step, the configuration file, because honestly, it is a huge time saver. By mapping out a realistic configuration file with a friendly alias, something like staging-api-01, along with the exact IP address and the specific user like Ubuntu, you ensure you never have to memorize another string of numbers again. Once this is saved, VS Code automatically reads the file. From then on, your server just casually shows up in a friendly drop-down menu in your Remote Explorer. Literally one click, and you're securely connected.
Section 3, remote development power moves.
Just think about the sheer capabilities you unlock once you're connected. Because that VS Code server is actively running on the remote machine, you can open massive remote log files instantly, and VS Code will automatically colorize and syntax highlight them for you. You can access an integrated bash terminal right at the bottom of your screen without ever context switching to a separate app. Imagine the power of firing off Kubernetes commands or restarting a service in the terminal, while simultaneously having your remote configuration files open in the editor right above it. And if you're coding, you can actually attach debuggers directly to a remote Node or Python process, stepping through code that's running on a completely different continent as if it were sitting right on your lap.
And this right here,
This is exactly why system administrators absolutely love this tool. Think about the traditional workflow. If you wanted a rich editing experience, you had to use SCP to securely copy a file from the server down to your laptop, edit it locally, save it, and then SCP it all the way back up to the server. It is an incredibly slow, painful loop. But with Remote SSH, you're executing changes directly on the live file system. You just open your config file, make your edits with full IntelliSense and auto-completion, hit save, and boom, the file is instantly updated on the server.
Let's bring it all together in Section 4. Real-world incident response.
Picture this scenario. A junior engineer reaches out to you in a panic because the staging server service is repeatedly crashing. We need to investigate the root cause directly. Now, there's a pretty famous anecdote from a Google site reliability engineer. They once investigated a completely broken machine and found that the root file system was completely full of nonsense logs. Their initial instinct? Just write a quick script to SSHN and truncate the logs to free up space. But a teammate pointed out that doing so just masks the severity of the problem. Remember the core Google SRE philosophy? We want to find and fix the actual root cause, not just write a script to sweep the issue under the rug. So we really need to get into that server and see what's actually happening.
This timeline perfectly maps out the ideal workflow, especially if you're doing some over-the-shoulder mentorship with that junior engineer. Minute 0, you open VS Code and click Connect to Staging-API-01. The SSH tunnel is instantly established. Minute 1, instead of running wildly complex string searches in a raw terminal, you just open the syslog right in the VS Code editor. It's fully searchable, it's highlighted. Minute 2, because you can actually read the data clearly, you quickly spot the configuration error. Open the offending config file in a split tab and edit it live. Minute 3. You pop open the integrated terminal at the bottom of that exact same window. Type the command to restart the service and watch the fresh logs roll in to confirm the fix. 4 steps, 3 minutes.
And really, that is the ultimate takeaway here. The entire investigation, the remediation of the code, and the verification of the fix all happen securely in one single window. Because the VS Code server runs the bash shell on the remote machine, but displays it buttery smooth on your local Windows or Mac environment, your workflow remains completely uninterrupted. You didn't have to juggle 5 different tools, authenticate multiple times, or try to eyeball race through a giant wall of white text on a black background. You handled a remote system with the exact same precision and comfort as your local desktop.
With an environment this clean, this secure, and this unified, ask yourself, why in the world would you ever want to go back to the chaos of the old way? If your daily routine involves securely connecting to remote infrastructure, virtual machines, or cloud instances, it might be time to stop eyeball racing and start developing smarter. Take a hard look at your own workflow today. How much time are you wasting just trying to get comfortable in a remote environment? Dive into VS Code Remote SSH and reclaim your productivity.